Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching this from. It's Thursday, the 16th of June, and it's exactly 21 hours Central African time. Welcome to the Linda Banks Show on TVBAKWETU, and I'm your host, Linda Banks. This program is going to be broadcast live across all our social media handles, the Linda Banks Facebook page, TVBAKWETU, YouTube, as well as the Elias Munsha Facebook page. Now, before I introduce my guest, could you kindly let us know where you're watching us from, where you're receiving us from, which part of the world are you receiving us from? That would be lovely. And as you're doing that, I would like you to type in the comment section below, what is your earliest memory of this special guest? Because I know the Z social media platforms have gone ablaze just discussing this, and it will be quite interesting just to see and to hear, more importantly, what your very first memory of my guest is. Now, it's a very rare privilege and an honor to interview Zambia's very own answer to Larry King, Mr. Frank Mutubila. Now, my guest tonight is arguably the only broadcaster alive to have attended all the 7 presidential inaugurations, which is just incredible in itself, with his most recent one being that of our 7th Republican president, His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. His media journey started 52 years ago. He is a celebrated broadcaster who has worked for the BBC, ZNBC, as well as many other media houses. He was once voted as the best broadcaster of all time, which is just incredible in itself. One of the most influential persons in Zambia. He's a father of 3 amazing children, one who's a poet here in the United Kingdom, and another son who lives in Washington. He's a grandfather of 6, I believe. You would not actually think that was possible. He is the brains behind quite a lot of famous shows in this sovereign republic. One being the iconic Kwacha Good Morning Zambia. Some of you who are typing in your very first memory of this man might remember Kwacha Good Morning Zambia 40 years later, and it's still going strong. He's also the brains behind Let the People Talk 27 years later. The program is still going. Last but not the least, he's very famous for the iconic Frank Talk, named after himself, actually. And that's been going for 20 years. He just did a Frank Talk Revisited, an episode sometime last week, I believe, where he featured Zambia's most amazing vice president, Her Honor Mrs. Mutale Nalumango. Now, I guess you already know who the gentleman I'm talking about. Ambassador Frank Mutubila, welcome to the Linda Banks Show.
Thank you very much, Linda. It's a pleasure to be on your famous show.
It's wonderful to have you. Now, I believe you are one of those people who has interviewed many people, but you've barely done any interviews yourself. What's the reason behind that?
I'm afraid I don't do many interviews. Linda, I'm a bit protective. I think people who get interviewed are crazy. I think it's a frightening experience. So I love to be on the other side. For me, this is a bit strange, a bit unique. I think this is only the 5th interview I'm doing in the last 52 years. I try to be protected.
It's incredible. Only the 5th interview. I must say it's an honor and a rare privilege to interview you. I don't actually know whether to bow curtsy, because quite frankly, I'm in the presence of broadcasting royalty. First things first, happy birthday, happy 70th birthday. And this is what makes it even more exciting, because it's your 70th birthday today and you agreed to do this interview. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Linda. It's an honor. Not too many people turn 70, especially in Africa. So I feel privileged. I feel honored. I must thank my God, my family, my friends, and of course the listeners and the viewers who make me tick.
Amazing. Let's go right from the beginning where it all started. I'm very intrigued, especially the fact that you have been in the broadcasting industry for this long, and I've probably had more Christmas dinners than you've been interviewed yourself. Which is just quite difficult to wrap my little brain around. Now, you are a father. Let's start from there. You are a father. You've got a child who lives here in the United Kingdom who's a poet. And and another one who lives in Washington, D.C. What sort of a father do you think you have been, and what sort of a role model have you been? Do you think you have been a good role model as a father?
I think the most unfortunate thing is that I've been an absent father. You know, my firstborn left Zambia when he was about 10, 11 years old. And he went to England because by then I was, studying in England and working for BBC. My first wife was working for the bank in England. When I decided to come back home, my wife thought she could pursue her career in London. So I left the family, there, and I started seeing them occasionally. I'll go to England, and then when I was ambassador in Italy, I'll visit my son, regularly. But it's been difficult because I stay away from my son, but we communicate regularly, and we got an amazing bond. He's absolutely an amazing, guy. My second born, like you mentioned, is in Washington. So because of the distance, that's why I feel I am an absent, father, which is very, very unfortunate. I would have loved them to be with me here in Zambia, but they've been away from home for a long time, and they've made their respective countries their own, homes. But because of technology, obviously we communicate on daily basis. I try to be a good father. I try to be a good role model. But having said that, I failed in many ways. I've been married twice, Linda, and it couldn't work out. So my children have missed, the mother, have missed, me, because they're very far away from both of us. But like I keep on saying, with technology, we do manage to communicate, regularly. But the ideal situation would have been if I was still married and they were here. But they're adults and they're very independent.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about your children as we go along. Now, earlier you mentioned you've done very few interviews. I believe the very first one that you did was with Malaya, who's now a lawyer in South Africa, and that was in the 80s. Then you did another one with the children's broadcasters a long time ago, followed by Anthony Mkwita, and the legendary Costa Mwansa had the privilege of interviewing you. Then I believe you did another one with Malama Kaunda about 2 years ago on Diamond TV. So now I was just intrigued. I know you've said you're quite you prefer interviewing other people, but I was intrigued as to why, for someone who's as open as you are and a legendary broadcaster, you've done so few interviews. Now, could it be you've got something to hide, Ambassador, or maybe you're just genuinely a very private person?
Well, I think my role, is to interview people, is to put people in the news. I feel, as a media person, as a broadcaster, I'm not supposed to make news. So I deliberately, decided, let me stay away and promote, other people instead of promoting, myself. I think just being a broadcaster is public, enough. I mean, in public domain. I don't want to overplay it. So I try to minimize, my being, on the other side of being, interviewed. I'm a kind of an enigma person, right? I mean, I want people not to know me very well. Sounds very strange because I feel just being, on the telly, is good enough. I don't want to do more than that. I don't want people to dissect me, although they do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, most of the time, wrongly. Let me put it that way. And I find it exciting that people think they know me when they don't actually.
It's quite interesting. I think most broadcasters like their lives to be like that, where they're letting news be news and not them making news. So you coming to this interview goes against everything in your fiber. Now, why did you agree to this interview?
First and foremost, it's my birthday, right? I decided, well, let me be open for the first time, because it's not always you turn 70, Linda. So I thought it would be an opportune, time. And I've been thinking of slowing down. Actually, I'm on the borderline of maybe semi-retiring. So I thought it would be an opportune time, to talk about me.
Excellent. And I'm so privileged that you're quite happy to talk about you. So you've turned 70. Is it? Is this the final, Frank Mutubila? Is it the final curtain call? You're hanging up your boots. You said semi-retiring. How does semi-retiring look in your world? I know you're currently writing a book, and we'll talk more about it. Yes, Ambassador.
Linda, 52 years is a long time.
It is.
I know broadcasters normally should not retire. They should just wither off. But I feel I've run my race, and I'm not so sure that there's anything else for me, to achieve apart from passing on the baton, to young broadcasters. But having said that, somebody told me yesterday and said, look, stay on, because the 70 of yesterday is today's 40. That made me feel young.
That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. 70 is the new 40, and you're still vibrant, still energetic. You keep very crazy hours. I know you're writing a book, and like I mentioned, you keep crazy hours like most scribes do. So between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., you're up writing. And the book, I believe, sweeps across an array of genres. So you have a chapter on climate change. You're discussing the 7 presidents that you've served under, family values. You also have a chapter on rich kids and poor kids, Christianity. And there's another one that intrigued me, how not to shortchange yourself. Now, the reason why that intrigued me is because you sadly lost your father at the age of 9. Now, how did you come to believe that life can be better for you? How not to shortchange yourself? How did you start thinking there's more to life for me than meets the eye?
I think I get the drive, from my father. My father was an amazing, person. Like I said, I lost him when he was 9 years old. But within that period, he taught me a lot. He taught me how to read the Bible. He taught me about life at a very early age. He really inspired me. He was bigger than life. But the most important thing, he introduced me to Christianity, introduced me, to God. And that really was a firm foundation, for me. He taught me how to believe that there's nothing impossible as you know, as long as you believe in God. He taught me one amazing phrase, which I keep on using today and encouraging people in that. It says, do your very best and God will do the rest.
Yeah.
So that is my driving force. In everything that I've done, I do my very best and I leave it, to God to do the rest. So that really is my energy. God gives me energy and Jesus drives me.
So that is quite an interesting response. How does this reconcile with your reputation as a Lothario or like a ladies' man? Because you clearly have got very strong faith. To what extent would you agree that you were, and still are a ladies' man?
Well, I think that has been misunderstood a little bit. Most of my friends are ladies. I feel very, very comfortable in the midst, of ladies. So that is misconstrued. That every lady I meet, is presumed, my girlfriend. To the contrary, most of these have been friends. You'll be shocked, Linda, that in my 52 years, I've only had 10 serious relationships, and 2 of those ladies I married. But to summarize this, I'm simply very, very comfortable in the midst of ladies. I trust ladies more than I trust, men. Oof, a lot of men gossip. A lot of
How
men
did
gossip.
that come to be? How did that come to be? How did you begin to trust ladies more than men? Is there something that happened that led you to be a bit more comfortable around ladies than men?
I don't know. It's just natural, like I said, I found a lot of men, that they gossip, so I decided if men can gossip, let me try the other side of the gender. And then I started hanging around, with ladies from a very early age of, I think, about 13, 14. And I developed, that trust, along the way.
Okay. So us growing up as new scribes, watching you every day, and the stories, were you even just being at ZNBC, the stories that would hear is watch out for Frank Mutubila. So all that was just people's assertions.
It's a make-believe. I can't hide that I didn't have relationship. I did have relationship. And most of my relationship are very strong. Okay. But yeah, okay, I get attracted to ladies. But above all, it's not just about the physical beauty. It's the inner, beauty that I love, most. I love women who are intelligent. That really makes me feel great.
Brilliant. Now, talking of ladies, there's a fabulous story that I've been reliably told by a mutual friend of ours on how you got married on a Thursday. Pray share with our audience as to why that was so. Quite a random day of the week, is it not?
Well, I love football. Okay. Apart from Christianity, apart from God, my second love is football. When I got married for the second time, we decided on a Saturday, like most, marriages in Zambia. But I realized that on that particular day, my favorite team, Manchester United, was scheduled, to play. So I decided to move the date to Thursday. Fortunately, it was Christmas Eve. And my wife to be thought it was cool to get married on Christmas day. Least did she know that she could not compete with Manchester United. Nothing nothing comes in between me and Manchester United. So I got married on the Thursday, not because it was something cool to do, but I just did not want that to clash with the game between Manchester United and another team. Yeah.
That is funny. Did they win?
Yes, they did.
They did. Also, it was worth.
It was worth it. It was worth it. It was the season when Manchester United won the triple, you know, the FA Cup, the league, and the European Cup then, which is today the Champions League. Yeah, it was an amazing decision.
Excellent. Now, I got a message from someone that you may know, from a blast from the past. And he told me to ask you about your love for football, because I must say, for this legendary broadcaster, I struggled to do research on you. Perhaps it's deliberate that you haven't put out a lot out in the domain, apart from a few things that Uncle Google could help me with. But luckily for me, I know quite a lot of broadcasters who know you quite intimately. So that was a little bit more helpful. But I must say, I was very disappointed to find very little material about you. Don't you think you're doing us a disservice by not documenting all these incredible interviews that you have done in the past?
Well, I agree. Partially, I agree. But like I said, I try not to publicize myself, right, at random. What I'm doing now, having thought about, you know, this question you've posed, I feel it is important, you know, to chronicle, you know, some of, you know, my works. So I am actually currently, you know, working on a book, and I think that book is going to reveal more, you know, about me, about, you know, various, you know, interests, you know, that I've developed over the last, you know, 52 years.
Oh, that is really good. Now, it may appear like nature has created this wonderful serendipity, because I understand that our very own governor, Dr. Elias Munja, was once your pastor at Grace Ministries. Now, be honest, Ambassador, was he a decent preacher as he is a lawyer?
That's a difficult one, because I really don't like, you know, judging, you know, people. I attended some of his sermons at Grace Ministries, you know, where I spend a bit of time, because my sister, you know, goes, you know, to that church, and I found him to be a good preacher man. Okay, my position, Linda, is very simple. I don't care what you do. I don't care your character. As long as what you're preaching impacts me, right? Yeah, I'm not worried about how you behave. My concern is, what am I learning, you know, from you? And I think his preaching, you know, was amazing. I'm not so sure whether you can mix religion and politics, but there again, it's his choice. You know, I believe that perhaps it's important to stick to one discipline. But if you are able, you know, to mix the two disciplines, and you can do that effectively, I have no problem with that.
That is quite interesting. Now, we'll be diving into different topics because your life is so rich. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your star sign. You are a Gemini, quite emotional person, and we're going to be touching on some quite emotional topics. So this is a safe place. Please do not feel bound to a particular code of conduct. You pay tributes to a man called Charles Miyamwa. I don't know if I got the pronunciation right.
Yep.
And you pay incredible tributes to him. I've heard you speak in one of your talks, and I thought that was quite an emotional conversation you had with someone about him. I would like you to sort of just dive in a little bit how you guys got connected, how you met, and what role he played in your life. And also, whilst we're talking about your Gemini side, your emotional side, you were once told, I think it was on your last birthday, that you're living on borrowed time. So you need to give up the wine, slow down, start living a bit of a slower life. Have you given up the vino, or do you intend to?
I love red wine. I really do.
What's your favorite?
And yeah, and my favorite is a wine called Amarone. I developed this, when I was in Italy. I spent almost 4 years in Italy as
they produce
as ambassador.
excellent wine, the Italians.
Yes, I love Italian, wine. Giving it up, I am not so sure. Because it's been part of my life. You talk about, Charles Muyamwa. I owe almost everything to Charles as far as my career is concerned, because he gave me the first break 52 years ago. I answered an advert, which was requesting would-be presenters, continuity announcers, and he interviewed me. He was very impressed, and from that time, we
How
developed.
old were you then? 19?
18 years.
18 years old.
18. Yeah, so he gave me my first break, as a broadcaster. I mean, anybody who gives you the first step in life, you really have to respect that person. So I respect Charles. He was my boss, but we developed as very good, friends. During that time, he had just divorced. So he was basically bouncing his emotions on me. And we became very, very close. He was a good cook, a good chef. I equally like, cooking. So that was another common, factor. But above all, I respected him as one of the best broadcasters, I've ever come across. I learned a lot, from him. He tutored me, and he shaped my career. So tremendous respect for him.
That is great. Was that ZNBC?
It was then called Zambia Broadcasting Services.
Okay.
Before it became Zambia Broadcasting, Corporation. Yeah, way back in 1970. Long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other people do you whose shoulders you stand on to make you this legendary broadcaster?
There were a number of people. When I joined Linda, we were, I think, about 15, 20 really great broadcasters. One who stands out is the late Charles Mando. I think one of the greatest broadcasters this country has ever produced. Yeah, he was.
He used to do Sunday shows. He used to do. I remember when I was a little girl, he used to do Sunday shows and would always watch with Dad. They were just incredible, very captivating.
He used to do, Sunday interview.
Yes, I remember that.
He was very, very good. We're very close. I mean,
it's a shame I never got the opportunity to meet him. He was an amazing broadcaster.
He was an incredibly talented person. But many of the people I started with, I think about 15 or so, they passed on, which really breaks my heart.
Yeah.
These were great guys.
Yeah. So, touching more on your star sign again, I heard you narrate how you've had so many low moments in your life, and there's a particular church that that has been there for you. Would you like to share a little bit about that, please?
I'm a very emotional person, because of my star. and I cry a lot.
Do you?
And yes, I do. Yes, I do. I cry at any moment, but I find it as a therapy. I'm not ashamed about it. You talk about low moments. I've had incredibly many low moments in my life.
What would be the lowest
lost,
you think of?
I think losing my father, because really he was my hero.
Yeah.
Losing a father at 9 years old, I was very, very angry with God. I think it took me almost 40 years to recover. And that's the time when I discovered church. That's the time when I became close to Christianity. I discovered that we human beings are just a conveyor belt, a medium on behalf of God to bring about, human beings on life. So that's when I accepted that really he may have been my physical father, but he belonged to God.
Yeah.
And then I faced other low moments. I think my divorce also was one of my lowest.
Which one?
So when my second marriage was really, really heartbreaking.
Why do you think that was?
It's very difficult to pinpoint, Linda, what the problem was, because I thought we were incredibly in love. I think that took me by surprise, and it impacted me, badly. My first marriage was easy to deal with, because I left my wife, in England, and the distance basically affected our breakup. But the second marriage, I didn't see it coming. So that impacted me badly. And that's where I found a church called Miracle Life.
Okay, before we
prior
get
to that, I was a member of.
Sorry to cut you short.
Yeah,
Before we get. I was going to say, before we get to the Miracle Life, I just wanted to dive deeper.
Yeah, like I was saying, when I came back,
marriage. Some people are on records to say it affected you terribly because you were at the receiving end of a heartbreak that you have been dishing out the past several decades. To what extent would you agree with that?
Well, not really. Like I keep on saying, Linda, we people who are public figures are misunderstood.
Yeah.
I tried to be a good husband. I may not have been, perfect. And I don't think it was a retribution on behalf of, my wife. She decided to move on at a time when I least expected that. But I respect people's decisions, and I respect her decision, to move on, and I've moved on. The only unfortunate thing is our divorce was played in public, and it was very painful, especially to my children. But I've since recovered, and I've moved on.
Have you really recovered, Ambassador?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And for whatever it is, whether she was wrong, I was wrong, these things happen. But the only thing I can tell you, Linda, is divorce can be painful. It's not something that I can wish on anybody. But the most important thing is when you're on your knees, the most important thing is to get up and get going. And that's basically what I've done.
Indeed. If she came back today and said, Frank, I'm terribly sorry for what transpired, I want you back, what would you say?
We've lost the link. Could you call
Ambassador, can you hear me? I think we may have lost.
Linda, we
There
lost
you
you
go.
there.
Yes, I was saying if
Yeah.
your ex-wife came
Okay, we're
back
back.
and came back and said, "I'm terribly sorry for what I did. I want you back." What would you say?
Well, I would accept the apology. Okay, she has not apologized. Maybe she thinks what she did was not wrong. I accept whatever decision she made. But if indeed she came back, I would accept the apology. And indeed, for whatever it is, I've forgiven. I'm not saying I'm perfect.
He hasn't apologized.
No.
Would you like her to apologize?
Not at all.
Do you wish for an apology?
I don't know. Maybe for the time I spent in court. I spent 5 years in court, Linda, at a cost. And that really, I found it very unfair to spend so many years in court at a cost. I mean, it cost me 5 years of my life, which really was unfortunate. From that score.
Why was that, though?
Yes.
Why was that?
Yeah.
Why did it take so long? And why so many court cases?
Well, court cases in this country take long. Sometimes they are self-induced. Sometimes one party doesn't turn up. Like sometimes she would do that. She wouldn't, turn up. The case would be adjourned. And it took 5 solid years at a cost, at a cost financially and mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the reason behind the divorce?
Wow.
Because there has been so many speculations in the media, but we want a frank conversation with Ambassador Frank Mutubila. Pretty much frank talk. What really happened?
I think it was basically being unfaithful to each other and irreconcilable, differences. Yeah, I think that was the major reason.
Both of you were unfaithful to each other.
I was not unfaithful. It's the other way.
Okay. Yeah. So this is where now we come to Miracle Life Church.
Yeah.
Would you care to
when I came back? Yeah, when I came back, I was expecting, my church, which was founded by my late father, United Church of Zambia, in particular, a church called Trinity, where I was a member since 1970, to approach me, to console me, to provide wisdom, help. But the church didn't. The church wasn't forthcoming until somebody introduced me to Miracle Life, and the church provided therapy, and it made it possible for me to recover. I met a lot of wonderful people, who helped me, go through this very difficult, period.
What type of therapy did you undergo?
We're basically, discussing, telling me about the merits of demerits of breakup, teaching me the word of God, encouraging me, being in the midst of other people who had faced similar situations. So this helped a lot. Above all, I also played my part. I started a program called The Art of Marriage, where I was featuring good marriages and breakups. And I discovered that the worst situations that people encountered, and that really provided, some encouragement, to me that this was not the face of me. Many people had gone through this situation. So yeah, it's provided therapy for me.
That is wonderful. Is that program still going where you feature different marriages?
No, I was doing it at a television station called Diamond. But when I started my radio station, which I own, I had to give up,
Congratulations
that
on
program.
that. Yeah, many congratulations on that. I hear great things are taking place there. You produce amazing programs. Now, a last question on your love life, Ambassador. How is your love life right now?
I'm not dating. Okay?
Why?
I don't trust women.
Oh,
I
you
don't know.
started off with trusting women an awful lot, but you don't trust women anymore. That is a travesty.
Well, maybe let me put it this way. I just don't want to go into a serious relationship, because I feel maybe it could repeat itself.
You're protecting your heart.
Yeah, I'm comfortable the way I am. I'm comfortable with my work. I'm virtually married to my work.
Ambassador, you should feel the fear and do it anyway. I say, I think it's a shame. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Well, Linda, they say, don't say never. We'll see. We'll see. I'll leave everything in the hands of God.
Okay, now let's talk about happier times, happy things. I don't want you getting all emotional. I know you are a Gemini. let's lift up the tempo a little bit and cast your mind to decades ago when you were a little boy, and the then Kenneth Kaunda, Republican president, came to your area to visit. To visit your dad, so to speak. I think your father was a man of a cloth, wasn't he? So how did that come to be? Did you come from a prominent family? How did Kenneth Kaunda come to visit the place where you used to live?
I come from a Christian family. Like I said, my father was a co-founder of United Church of Zambia, the same church which the late president used to go to. We were living on the Cobelt, in a town called Kitwe. And the late wife of the late first president, Dr. Kaunda, was at a college called Mindolo Ecumenical Center, where she was studying, social studies. And Dr. Kaunda, whenever he came to visit the wife, he would meet the wife at my dad's in a place. And that's the first time I set eyes on this great man.
And was he a president already then?
No, he wasn't a president. He was just a freedom fighter then. Least did I know that one day this great man will be president, of our country. Yeah, that's the first time I met, Dr. Kaunda.
How did you experience him? Do you have much of a memory? I know in his eulogy, you spoke so beautifully about that experience. Is there anything else that you remember from that interaction as a little boy?
I was in awe with this man. He was tall, I think almost 6 feet, like my father. And what struck me was his good looks and his stretched, hair. And he was a very imposing man. I virtually was in awe of the man.
Yeah. Now, fast forward several years later, he's now president. What was your first meeting after that initial meeting at Mindolo?
I was about 19 years old in my second year of my career. Like I said, Charles Myonga had a lot of faith in me. And he asked me to join a panel of seasoned broadcasters to interview, Dr. Kaunda. That was about 19 years old.
Wow.
And it was amazing, really, really amazing that here's a man I knew when I was only about 8 years old. And now, what, 10, 11 years later, to interview the man. It
Did
was
you
an
remind
amazing
him?
experience. Amazing.
Yeah. Did you remind
Amazing.
him of your first encounter?
No, I was starstruck. I was really starstruck. I mean, the fact that I could interview him was really big enough. It is amazing.
Good. Yeah. So you speak very fondly of KK, especially I enjoyed listening to the eulogy that you had done for him. And you were talking about how he was quite famous for telling journalists to stop asking stupid questions if they did ask stupid questions. Were you at a receiving end of those kind of sharp-tongued rebukes?
No, fortunately not. I always try to ask intelligent questions. I think it's important for a journalist, to do research, and for journalists to actually appreciate and understand the person, you're directing questions at. I knew Dr. Kaunda well, and I knew his temper. So I made it a point that I don't make him angry. But there was a time in the midst of a press conference where he lashed out at a BBC reporter for what he termed a stupid question. He could be short-tempered.
And I believe on that incident, the BBC reporter never returned for any more press briefings, did he?
He boycotted, and subsequent press conferences, most BBC reporters never turned up.
They never turned up because of that incident. How interesting. But despite having said that, you're also on record for saying that in as much as he was occasionally short-tempered, but he was also incredibly giving and very respectful of journalists to an extent that he would give you so much respect that he would give you front seat, so to speak, to press conferences, a very rare privilege that was mostly reserved for members of the Central Committee as well as the members of cabinet, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is your memory of that?
The importance
or cabinet ministers even.
Yeah. Dr. Kaunda appreciated the importance of media people, because that was his medium of communication. He really, he respected us, a lot, and he could even serve us a cup of tea, cup of coffee himself.
I want you to talk more about those famous coffees, because we've got mutual friends like Chavala Chimpampa, Chela Katwishi, Doreen Mukanzo, who've told me about these incredible I don't know what you used to call them, coffee meetings, tea meetings, where the president will serve you tea. What was the experience like?
Whatever meeting, whatever press, conference, before that starts, President Kaunda will personally serve you with tea, coffee, biscuits. It was unbelievable. He is a president who is supposed to be respected, but he turns the coin round and he shows you just how much he appreciates you. Hence, the whole occasion of serving, pressmen with tea and coffee. It was another way of bonding, with pressmen. Yeah, amazing. It's a beautiful occasion.
So would you say that he demonstrated the servant attitude type of leadership?
Absolutely. He was like a father away from home. He made you feel at home. He made you feel important.
Mm.
You know, not every time we media people receive, you know, that kind of reception. We
Yeah.
most of the time we regard it as enemies, but he made
Yeah.
you feel at home. It
Mm.
made you feel important.
Yeah. Important points that you're talking of important, made you feel important points that you've raised. He made you feel valued. Nowadays, as a media, we're often swatted off like flies, you know. You're like begging for an
Yeah,
interview with a minister, for instance, which is quite peculiar, especially for me being in the United Kingdom. I mean, you've lived here,
yeah,
you know how things are done. So it constantly perplexes me how these civil servants feel like they owe us something, you know, like you're being swatted off left, right, and center without understanding that close relationship. Because politics and media, they're meant to be constantly in bed together for the citizens to actually benefit from whatever policies that particular government, that the government of the day is doing. So it's quite a shame that that happens. Now, do you think what the late President Kaunda demonstrated, have you seen it since in the other presidents? Because you literally have attended and worked under 7 presidents. Have you seen that kind of leadership demonstrated
not
in the other presidents?
not really, Linda. You know, I think President Chiluba tried, but going, you know, forward, most of the presidents, you know, started insulating, you know, themselves. I think
Why?
the worst one was President Lungu. He
Mm.
rarely had press conferences. I think in the 7 days, it was 7 years he was president. I
Mm.
think he only had maybe 2 or 3 press conferences.
Yeah.
It,
And
it's
almost
a
felt
well
like
of
he treated the press with such contempt. Why?
absolutely, you know, it's a way of insulating, you know, oneself,
From what?
especially when when you feel you're not governing properly. So you tend to insulate yourself. You don't want people to digest it. What are you doing?
Hmm.
Yeah,
So that point you've just raised, when the president feels he's not governing, he or she, it could be a woman,
yeah,
they're not governing properly, then they insulate themselves. So you would
yeah.
agree that President Lungu did not govern properly. Would you
No.
agree? Yes or no? No. Okay. Having said that, it takes me to the question. I'm going to revisit this question because it's quite an important one.
Mhm.
You in the media, I'm excluding myself here because I'm somewhere else, but you have been on the ground back home and you have perpetually said everything is all right. The government has done really well in this and that. But here you are saying that he did not govern the country very well. I very rarely had people like yourselves, legendary broadcasters, actually articulating those points. Why? Why now?
I think it's important to be honest. Okay, I've always been honest in my work.
Mm.
Okay, when I see something that is not right, I say it out. Okay, because that is my job. Okay, my job is not to protect a government.
Mm.
My job is not to protect a president when he is doing the wrong thing. I
Mm.
believe that as journalists, we should be truthful. We should not be afraid. Okay, not every journalist is like me. You know, we different,
Mm.
especially broadcasters, journalists who work for the public in a media. They are limited in
Mm.
terms of what to say because they're working for the government, and it's the government that is, you know, paying them. But funny enough, during Kaunda, which was a one-party state,
Yeah.
we were free to criticize because Kaunda believed in us and we believed, you know, in him, and we developed trust. But right now, trust doesn't exist between the 2 parties. That is the major, you know, problem. You know, the
Okay.
politicians, Yeah, the politicians tend, like we say, tend to insulate themselves because they're not doing the right things. If you're doing the right things, you'll be free to face the media. You'll be free to be criticized. But it's not the case today.
It's not the case today. So which means that you're saying it's not the case in the New Dawn government?
No, to the contrary. I think the New Dawn government, especially the president, has made it very clear that the journalists should be free. But
making it clear and actually doing it are two different things.
Two different things. They can't believe that suddenly the chains have been loosened. They're still suffering from a hangover of the past. It's going to take time, for the media to change.
Ambassador Mutubila, do we have time though?
I don't know whether we've got time, but we have to change this. Okay? If we
how can we change? What do we have to do as a media to change, to help the civil servants who are still swatting us off like little flies? How do we tell them and make ourselves heard that we are the most important partner in this journey?
First and foremost, there has to be political will from the leaders. That is very cardinal. The second thing is to change the laws. There is a bill which has been outstanding for a long time, access to information. If that is enacted, that will make it easy for journalists to operate, because that bill, that law, will make it possible for the journalists to access any information. For me, that is very critical. But like I say, there must be political will. Yes, political will is existing, but as long as the archaic laws are in place, laws like the law for defamation, it still makes it difficult for journalists to operate. So we need
How do you think it makes it difficult?
Because these laws are restrictive. They're very restrictive, especially the law of defamation.
Could you cite an example?
Well, there have been times when journalists have written something about political figures, and politicians have used that law to take the journalists to court. So that is restrictive. We need to relax, those laws. And I repeat, we must enact access to information.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's dive deep, slightly into politics, because you've spent a lifetime interviewing politicians, and the most recent one being the vice president. I saw you at a recent inauguration for President Kaunda, intimately talking to his spokesperson. What were you talking about? What were you telling him? You looked rather intimately kind of intertwined. What were you talking about?
Well, I was telling him, like I told the president, that the need to improve information flow. There's some good things this government is doing, but accessing, especially the ministers, has been very difficult. I find it very frustrating.
Me too. At least we share that sentiment.
Absolutely. Because these are public servants.
Yeah.
They need to provide information. They need to engage, people. But they continue to insulate, themselves, which is unfair to us media people, and subsequently unfair to the people who put them in office. So I told the vice president, I've told everybody, please ensure that the ministers that are supposed to provide information are accessible. If they don't do that, they're going to suffer as a government, because we won't know.
No, we won't know what they're doing, will we?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I always say that doing something amazing without letting the citizens know is a bit like winking at a girl in the dark and expecting her to understand that you actually fancy her.
Absolutely. You know, like I keep on saying, you know, if you don't advertise, it's like, you know, trying to see a beautiful woman in the dark.
Absolutely, pretty much. So, how do you think these, apart from obviously improving the flow of information, what feedback did you get, first of all, when you spoke to the presidential spokesperson as well as the president on that aspect, and the vice president? So you've been talking to the right people. What was their response to that?
The president appreciated that. And he made it very clear during the press conference, you know, that he expected his ministers to be accessible, right?
Are they accessible after the press conference?
No.
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 Who are the biggest culprits, Ambassador?
There are 4 critical ministries right now in the scenario that we face, you know, today.
Yeah.
And these are economic ministries. There's a ministry of small and medium enterprise.
Yeah, a very crucial ministry.
Very crucial. There's Ministry of Youth and Sport.
Yeah.
Very crucial. There's Ministry of Green Economy, about climate.
Yeah.
There's also the Ministry of Science and Technology. These are critical ministries, but there's not much information coming out of
Ministry of Information, not critical enough for you, Ambassador?
Yes, Ministry of Information is perhaps more critical, but it is just supposed to be, you know, an anchor in terms of information, you know, flow. But these individual ministries should not wait for Ministry of Information to take the lead. No, because
have you tried to be in touch? Have you tried to be in touch with any of those ministries, the heads of those ministries?
I try almost every time. I mean, I won't mention one ministry. There was a time it took me 1 month, you know, to access this particular minister and do an interview. 1 month.
1 month.
You can't operate like that.
And what was the excuse or reason, shall we say?
No reason. Busy. Busy. Okay. The minister is busy.
And these are people who are serving the president as well as the Zambian people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very troubling. And I think this could be their undoing, sadly. Flow of information is really critical. And if it's not happening effectively, that could be quite catastrophic.
It is very critical, Linda, you know, especially with this new Dawn government that promised, you know, so much to the people. They promised so many things. They need to explain why some of the things, you know, which they promised are not being implemented.
Yeah. And those critical ministries that you talked about, youth ministry, sports, SME, green economy, are directly linked to getting the young people out of the economic pickle that they're in. And this Nalumango Hichilema administration literally got ushered into government on the shoulders of the young people.
Yeah, the young people would like to know why most jobs haven't been created. They may have a reason, but they got to provide the reason why certain things have not been, you know, achieved. Information is power. Information sets you free, but this is not, you know, happening.
Yeah.
And that could be the undoing.
Yeah, I agree. So in a democracy like ours, quite a young democracy, what would be an ideal interaction between the government and the media?
I'd like a situation where wherever there's something that is important, it is disseminated. And then periodically, maybe weekly or monthly, these ministries should have press briefings. Quarterly, tell the nation, what has been, achieved. You have to engage, as much as possible, with the people. Zambian people like to be engaged.
Yeah.
And this you can see from talk shows. Talk shows are crammed with people phoning. That shows you that people are craving for information. And the government should know, the importance, of interacting with the electorate.
Yeah. Very critical. Very, very critical.
Yeah.
Apart from the points that you've alluded to, do you think there are any impediments to a free media that can be removed?
Yes, I've made reference, to the, access for information, law, which is very, very critical.
Yeah, crucial part of it.
All the governments have been dragging their feet for many years because there's a misunderstanding. They think access, to information, will give latitude, to only journalists. No, it gives even the power to any citizen to go to any institution and ask for information. But this is being, misunderstood. And right now, they want the media to start regulating itself. There's a mixed position, on this.
Yeah,
it's most unfortunate. It's fear of the unknown.
Yeah. The Zambian people do love to be spoken to. They spent over 10 years with a father who barely spoke to them. So they're not prepared to go through that again. And as we've said a few times now, that could be the undoing of the New Dawn government if this is not handled well. I don't know if it's sinking in or perhaps it's just like, well, it's just blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, this definitely would be the undoing if they don't actually adhere to this. Now, over a span of your career in the media, during several governments, 7 to be precise, you've attended all these 7 inaugurations. The media has been reporting many things that were supposedly being to advance the Zambian economy. And yet in 2022, here we are. Zambia is still on its knees with a begging bowl. Pointed to IMF for a bailout. Can we say that you people in the media, and I'm going to say you people because some of us haven't been on the ground for several years, you people in the media back home have been lying to the Zambian people since independence on how good things are?
That is a critical, question. Linda, we should not be in this position.
No.
Okay? I mean, Zambia, Africa, is endowed with all these natural resources, okay, which are being exploited, by our former colonial, masters. When there's so much technology, we can do it ourselves than rely on the so-called, investors. Yes, investors are welcome, but the indigenous people should be empowered. But there are deliberate policies, that favors, investors that come with cheap money, making it difficult for the indigenous people to participate in exploiting, their own minerals. All these minerals are taken away, from, Africa, from, Zambia. And this coupled by corruption, has made Africa, Zambia, more dependent, on foreign investment when they should be empowering, their own, people. It's such a shame, and it breaks my heart, Linda, because Africa, Zambia is not supposed to be poor. We've gone to IMF to borrow, on top of outstanding, date.
Yeah.
Yes, perhaps in the short period, the IMF bailout, is going to cushion, our problems from the date. But in the long run, we'll be back to square one.
We'll be back to square one. Yeah. Now we have many economists. We have got the Trevor Simumbas of this world. We've got the Clive Chilos of this world, and people like Chwamba Kanyama, with all different, coming from various different schools of thought. Which school of thought do you subscribe to as to get us out of the economic pickle, Ambassador?
The first thing is to start small. I'll give an example of Singapore, even China, okay? The foundation, Linda, is small, medium enterprises. That is the beginning. Even in the situation that Zambia faces now, yes, you can tackle the bigger economy, but in the interim, you must start funding small and medium enterprises. All big economies grow from small and medium. That's how Singapore grew. That's how China grew. Lately, that's how Bangladesh has grown. That, for me, Linda, is the beginning.
And it is quite worrisome that those points that you've just raised, those ministries you've just raised, are the ministries that are not very engaging at present. What do you think has to be done to kind of inject some life into them?
Well, first and foremost, there has to be political, will. I think the president did well to facilitate, these, ministries, which I've mentioned, small and medium enterprise, green economy, science and technology, youth and sports. These are new ministries and very, very well funded, from what I know. But it's the bureaucracy, which is so slow, it's stifling. It's very, very difficult, to get funding, from these, ministries. For me, I feel these funds should be channeled through the private, sectors. You've got to engage the private, sectors. There's too much bureaucracy in government. As long as they don't sort out this, it's a non-starter. We have what is called now the CDF fund, which has been increased from about 1 million kwacha to about 25 million. They're still grappling with administration. And 10 months down the line, very few projects have been funded. They've got the money, but because of administration challenges. Very unfortunate.
That is very unfortunate. You're talking about bureaucracy, and I remember the president categorically saying that he's going to cut bureaucracy. That was one of his priorities, campaign promises. And 10 months down the line, there's still bureaucracy in these key ministries, some of them that are brand new, specifically brought along because the president thought that this was going to be a good way of getting the economy going and getting the young people into employment.
It's a catch-22 situation, Linda. One of the challenges the government is facing is one, there are a number of new officers, okay, at the top, in these ministries. There are also still a lot of people from the previous administration, making it difficult at times to move. You got the new people who don't have experience, and you've got the experienced people who were serving the previous, administration. So this is a catch-22 situation.
People did make it a point when the Hichilema Lumango administration just took the instruments of power that you really need to clean up, and they did not. So these are the consequences. Let's move slightly to a completely different topic. Viewers, if you've just joined us, welcome to the Linda Banks Show on TVBAKWETU, and I'm your host, Linda Banks, and I have been joined by the legendary broadcaster, Ambassador Frank Mutubila, and we are talking life, politics, journalism, and all things Zambia. Now, Ambassador, you have been quite instrumental in mentoring broadcasters and various journalists. Some of you probably remember, but because sometimes as an educator, you don't remember the people that have passed through your hands. But there are some quite prominent names that are doing incredible things right now. People like Morini Nkandu Kwanguli Wewe, Namakau Mkelevai, Etambuyu, Anamela, Dora Celia. And they've all got into politics. They've become politicians. What happened to the men? And also, whilst you're responding to that, would you get into politics yourself? I know you have served as an ambassador in Italy, but would you get into politics?
No, I don't think so. Not this kind of politics. I mean, I'm not saying, there are a lot of dishonesty politicians, who don't serve the interests of the people. So I get very discouraged. I am one of the few voices that bring out some of these, issues. And if I had to join politics, I think I'll be denying the people's voice, to monitor some of these ills, that, go on. I keep on saying the problem with politicians is that even good people, when they get into politics, they become deaf and blind. I don't want either of that.
And that's always their downfall. It always perplexes me as to why they never learn. Politicians, and then going back to the broadcasters that you have mentored that have got into politics, where are the men? What happened to the men? Did they fall on the wayside?
There are not too many, broadcasters who turned politicians. I can only remember Charles Banda. He was one of my juniors, one of my managers when I was at ZMBC as a director. He served in the previous government. Since the previous regime lost the elections, I think he has faded away, because not too many people want to remain in opposition after being in government. So there've been very few men broadcasters who have joined politics.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Viewers, kindly keep sending your birthday wishes to Ambassador Frank Mutubila. It's his birthday, 70 years, and he's come to hang out with us, which is such a privilege. We're really honored to have you grace us with your presence. Now, I'll just go through some of the viewer comments. So there was this thing going on, asking questions about their first memory or just what they think about you. People are very generous with their comments. So there's one comment from Chavala Chimpampa, your close friend. She remembers and appreciates your resilience to bounce back. There's one message from Sipilo Siambwanta the Frank Talk presentations, we have never seen any journalist with such caliber and intellect to ask difficult questions without fear, by opening the box with fire and mind-provoking. Oh gosh, yeah. I think this goes on quite a lot of. And then there's one from Lucky Musiska. Do you remember Lucky Musiska? And this is from my Facebook page.
Is that a footballer?
Yes, he is.
Wow. Is he still in Belgium?
He is, yes. So these comments are from a Facebook page. So Lakim Siska says, I'm really looking forward to this. I can't wait. And then there's Pamela. He literally taught us PR, public relations, when he was ZESCO public relations manager. Yeah. Barbara Sharma says, mine will be controversial as usual. How he broke a lot of women's hearts, and finally his was broken by the woman he never thought would. And there's a lot of comments that are coming along that we don't celebrate people's heartbreaks. We have tackled that quite extensively. And someone, a comedian who says, I would love to interview Frank Mutubila. Nathan Kama, who is a presenter on Zambia Blog Talk. He resides in the United States. The strength he exhibited, meaning you, Ambassador Frank, the strength you exhibited during the nation's worst tragedy, when the national team perished and you read the main news. Clotilde says, happy birthday, Ambassador. I want you to touch slightly as we head into the final seconds of the program. How was it like on that day? Such an awful situation. We lost the entire national team, including all the crew, and you had to come out. And
it was heartbreaking.
When the entire country was in tears.
Yes, yeah, it was heartbreaking. I was in my office, I think about, midday. The news was to be read at 15 minutes after 1 o'clock. I was not scheduled, to read the news. I remember the person was the late Peter Mwemba. Yeah, but when the news broke, everybody was solemn. Everybody was heartbroken, nervous. So I decided this is the time for me to take up the mantle and show strength. That's when I decided how to read the news. I was not a newscaster, but I decided how to do it for the station, how to do it for the nation. So I read the lunch hour news, and I also read the evening television news. It was about saying, look, this is a tragedy, but somebody had to do it. And I was the boss. I was the director of news and current affairs. So I decided it is incumbent upon me to show strength at this very difficult time. That's when I decided to read the news. It was not easy. After the bulletin, I just, shed tears. It was off, really off.
We will be eternally grateful for that. And many people, tens and hundreds of people, remember that moment when you showed strength, and you continue to show strength and resilience. And we are eternally grateful for your service, and a very happy birthday. Hopefully we will meet in person so that we can share that Italian vino in honor of your many years in broadcasting. Ambassador Frank Mutubila, it has been a pleasure and an honor. And just thank you so much for joining us on this program. And viewers, we have been listening to this incredible man's story on the Linda Banks show on TVBAKWETU. And thank you so much for joining us. Keep sending those stars, and keep sending those happy birthday messages on Capital FM. You can see that in his background, and on the TVBAKWETU platform, we will forward them to him. God bless you. Have a good night, and God bless our country. Good night.
Thank you very much.